Alright, so Caddx has sent me this. This is their new GPS module. It's a Walksnail WS M181 GPS, whatever that means. As far as I know, this is one of the new generation M10 GPS receivers. There's quite a lot of them popping up online at the moment. And what's important about this GPS receiver is that apparently it's supposed to be immune to interference. I've never really had this problem myself, but apparently with the original V1 Walksnail video transmitter, that would produce a lot of interference, which would make it very hard for you to get a GPS lock. From what I understand, that's more of a problem on like race quads, where you tend to have the video transmitter and the GPS very close together. It's not really been so much of a problem for me on my aircraft, because there's normally a bit of separation between the video transmitter and the GPS. But either way, Caddx has sent me this to do a little bit of testing with, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. So let me just show you the little test rig that I've come up with here. So obviously we've got a flight controller here with an XT60, which will be connected to a battery down here. And this is going to be providing power to my video transmitter and camera. And this is the Walksnail V1 video transmitter and V1 camera. What I'm going to be doing is I'll be connecting the GPS up to the flight controller here, and then I'll position the GPS down here somewhere so that it's very close to the Walksnail VTX antenna, not directly underneath it, but just very, very close to it, to kind of simulate what you might have on a race quad, just having the GPS and the video transmitter very close. And then what will happen is I've got my goggles here, so I'll record the footage that's coming from this video transmitter. I've got an OSD set up on the flight controller that will show the GPS satellites and coordinates and HDOP. So I'll be able to review on here how well the GPS module is doing, whether it's managing to get a lock or not. Now what I'm also going to do, just for a benchmark, is I'm going to do the same tests with this receiver here. This is a Maytech GPS receiver. It's the SAM M8Q GPS receiver. Get in focus. I've been using these GPS receivers on all of my aircraft for the last couple of years now, and they've always been very good, very, very reliable. This one is broken. You can see the connectors come off here, but I have just direct soldered the wires on the back, and it does work absolutely fine. So I'll do some tests with this. Same test I'm going to do with the Walksnail one. I'll position it down here, close to the video transmitter. We'll see how this one does first, and then we'll try the Walksnail one, so we got a comparison between the two. So yeah, let's get on with it. Oh, just one thing to mention as well. It is a pretty cloudy day today, as you can see up there. And cloudy days tend to lead to not particularly good GPS signals. So it's just important that I mention that. Like, I'm probably not going to get a particularly high GPS lock with either of these units, just because of that. Anyway, let's get on with the tests. Okay, so 5 minutes have been and gone, and it still doesn't have a GPS lock. It's currently fluctuating between 3 and 4 sats, so it has managed to find some, but it hasn't managed to find the 6, which is the minimum required to allow an aircraft to arm. So yeah, there is definitely some interference coming off of this antenna. So what I'm going to do now for the next test is I'm going to move this GPS so that it's over here and that it's nowhere near these antennas, and then we'll see how well it does then. Okay, so I've left this test running for just over 5 minutes now, and as you can see, the results are a bit better. So the Maytech GPS here has managed to get, well, it's fluctuating between 10 and 11 sats. Now that's not a fantastic amount, but as I mentioned earlier, it is a pretty overcast day today. But yeah, as you can see, just by having some distance between the GPS module and the Walksnail antennas is enough to allow it to at least get a stable GPS fix. So yeah, so now the next thing to do is to do the exact same tests again, but this time with the new Walksnail GPS. Okay, so same as last time, I've got the GPS receiver set up very close to the Walksnail antenna, but importantly, it's not underneath it, it's just very, very close. So we'll power this up and then we'll see whether this manages to get a sat lock within 5 minutes. If it does, then it means that it is immune to interference from this antenna. If it doesn't, then obviously it means it's not. Let's do the test and see what happens. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes and unfortunately, as you can see here, in that time it's managed to find no satellites, none at all, which obviously isn't ideal. Obviously we're hoping to see that this was going to manage to get, you know, at least some satellites and hopefully at least 6, but actually it's managed to get absolutely 0. So yeah, that's not very good, and also it's worse than the M10 GPS. So yeah. Anyway, what I'll do now is I'll just repeat the same test with the M10 GPS. So I now move this from here over here, just so we can then do a test with some separation between the GPS and the Walksnail antenna and see how that does. Alright, so 5 minutes is up, and as you can see, it did manage to get a sat lock. It managed to get 9 satellites. Managed to get the first couple of satellites, I think it was within the first minute, so that's pretty good. But 9 satellites, I mean, that's a decent amount. It'd be enough to allow you to arm and fly the aircraft, but there's not as many satellites as the M10 GPS got, so that's kind of interesting. So annoyingly, that's not really the result we were hoping for, is it? As I said earlier, Caddx has been advertising this GPS module as being immune to interference, especially from their V1 video transmitter here. But from what I can see in my tests, that's not the case. Obviously, I'm trying to be as honest as I can here, and I'm just letting the results speak for themselves. So yeah, I have to say, as far as I can see, it doesn't really live up to the hype. Alright, so future gears here. So the footage you just saw was recorded yesterday. That was on Saturday. And I'm now recording this bit on Sunday, obviously. Just because I want to mention that after the tests that I did yesterday, that I just showed you, I did then do a whole load of additional tests just to be absolutely sure of the result. Back home last night, I basically repeated the same test that I just showed you. The only difference being I did it on my window ledge rather than outside. I don't tend to get the best GPS signal where I live, but I get enough of a signal I was able to repeat the tests. And unfortunately, I just saw the exact same result. If the GPS unit was anywhere near the Walksnail V1 video transmitter, it couldn't get a GPS lock. If I put some distance between both of them, eventually it could. I also went out and sat in a different field on a different part of the city and just repeated the same test there. So this was another test that was done outside with a good view of the sky. But again, the exact same result. Every time that I put the GPS unit near the Walksnail video transmitter, it can't get a signal. So unfortunately, yeah, it does seem that Walksnail's new GPS unit, which they claim is immune to interference, that doesn't quite seem to be true, which is obviously not great. Now today I've also done some different tests. I just wanted to see whether the new Walksnail GPS unit was just any good as a GPS unit, ignoring the interference problem. Just wanted to see whether, you know, it was any good at getting a GPS signal and whether it was potentially better than the M10 ones that I normally use. So what I've done is I just spent the last half hour just sat in a field, and the video transmitter has been removed from the equation now. So it's literally just the GPS unit connected to a flight controller, which was then connected to my laptop so I could monitor the GPS signals. And yeah, I just basically left the unit running for 5 minutes, see how many satellites I managed to get in 5 minutes, and then I did the exact same test with the Caddx GPS unit, see how many that could get. And yeah, in all honesty, there's not a huge difference between them. So the Caddx unit, it did manage to get 10 satellites in 5 minutes, whereas the Walksnail one managed to get 9. So, I mean, that's not a huge difference between them. I mean, obviously the Caddx one did do better, but I think it's interesting to see because the Caddx GPS unit costs quite a lot more than the Walksnail one. But it's obviously not sort of coming across that it's significantly better. So I think that if you were wanting to get a GPS unit and you didn't want to pay a lot of money, maybe you don't want to pay as much as the Caddx one costs, but you want one that's going to give you fairly comparable results, then this Walksnail one is probably going to be all right. It's not the best GPS unit in the world, but I reckon it would be all right for most applications. So yeah, so that's basically the conclusion of my tests. So I've done a whole load of tests now, and as I said, unfortunately, it doesn't seem that the Walksnail GPS unit is immune to interference as they claim, but it does seem to be a reasonably respectable GPS unit on the whole. So yeah, that's been my review of the new Walksnail GPS unit. I hope you found this video interesting. If you have, give it a like, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers guys, bye.